Hi, the following is a conversation with Bonnie Limbert, co-owner of Forge Valley Fitness here in Vernon, BC. She runs as well Empower Life, which has a mission of driving and promoting female empowerment, female confidence through different things such as fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle. She provides as well nutrition services. All the contact informations are in bio. Essentially, we talk about her fitness journey, a little bit about life-work balance, her pregnancy, a little bit about nutrition, obviously some female empowerment, and a few other things. As always, this is the Curious Art of Being Human. I am Robin. Thank you for watching this video. You know, if you like this content, this type of content, and what we're doing here, please consider subscribe to this channel. It helps tremendously grow, give some support to the project. And I think that's it. And now, my friends, Bonnie Limbert. Thank you.
Is very flowing.
I was doing a lot of course I want to sign up for this.
Yeah.
Always got to respond to something different. So, Bonnie, take me back to when you first started your fitness journey.
Okay.
How did you first get into training? At what age? What sport were you doing? How did you first get into this magical world?
Oh gosh. I guess it started when I was about 3 or 4. My mom put me in gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in gymnastics all the way till around 12. And then that kind of transferred into going into ringette, which is basically like hockey, but not. And then I played softball for numerous amounts of years. Kind of stopped that in my early 20s and then stopped doing things for a couple of years. And then my sister told me about CrossFit. She was like back in the day when it was still the regionals were being held at like university in Vancouver, like super small still. She's like, come watch. It's super cool. It kind of has like gymnastics. Come check it out. I think you'll love it. So I went and watched and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, what are they doing with that barbell? Like doing some overhead squats, doing some handstands. I was like, okay, I'm sold. Maybe I'll go check it out. So
What year was that? Sorry.
oh my goodness, what year was that?
Like 2014, 15 or earlier than that?
I would say
2012.
2013, 2014.
Yeah.
And then that year, my birthday, I asked for like the on-ramp for my birthday and went there and it was terrible. They just made you run with
Your first class?
my first class. He's like, all right, here's a 14-pound med ball. Go for a 400-meter run. And it was just terrible. Yeah. And I don't know why. Like, I know back in the day, like old school CrossFit, they're like, that's how they sell you. They're like, you know, you need this, right? So it definitely showed me how unfit I was. And then I just dabbled in it a little bit, wasn't too hard into it. And then I ended up moving to Edmonton. And I didn't know anybody out there. So I ended up finding a CrossFit gym and that kind of just really opened up my whole fitness journey, where like it overtook my whole life, like nutrition, full on committing to the fitness, training, recovery aspect. And that's where it kind of like really sunk in and like became a big passion for me.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So Edmonton was the place you really started to do CrossFit as a sport.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what was which gym was that? It's funny, I just went to Edmonton.
Did you?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago for just a shoot. It's way colder than it is here.
It is, but it's drier. It's like when it snows, it's nicer to kind of do things in, to drive especially. CrossFit Armory.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the west side. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you right away into the sport aspect of CrossFit, or were you taking this initially just first as some kind of like a fitness thing, and not because maybe also at that point it was not necessarily, because it became throughout the years more like a real sport itself, and initially it was more like a way of training
Yeah, for sure.
to help with other sports. Like what were your mindset with this when you started?
When I first started, it was just I enjoyed going, and I used it more so as like my working out. But when I moved to Edmonton, there it became a sport. It became a competition, and that's where it was more so like it was more than just working out, right?
Yeah. Were you? What was the competitive aspect that caught you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think seeing it more, like I was always, I remember going to the regionals even when I lived in Coquitlam before moving out to Edmonton. And I was like, this is so cool. Like the atmosphere, the hype, like everybody's working so hard. And it's just like, you're like, cool, I want to be in that. And I never really thought too much about it. I was like, maybe, maybe one day. But when I moved to Edmonton and went through my first open out there and saw, oh, okay, like maybe I could be a little bit better to maybe make it to regionals. Definitely not as an individual, but as a team, right? So that's kind of where like took it into high gear, hired a programming coach, hired a nutrition coach, and just everything kind of fell into place, and like worked my butt off to go after that dream. So
at that point, professionally, what were you doing?
I was a senior manager at TELUS.
Oh,
so,
wow, okay.
yeah. Very, very different from where I'm at now. Yeah.
Interesting. It's managing what, like the people that are working in offices or on the field for?
In offices. So I managed rights of way. So it's acquiring legal rights on public or private land to place underground facilities.
Interesting. How did you get into that in the first place? Just
Probably like 10 years prior, it was a contracting job. It was just admin work, entering in data, and it just developed into becoming like my manager's right hand. And then the opportunity to manage the Alberta offices came up, and she's like, I think this would be a great opportunity. And I was like, may
Sure.
as well.
Yeah.
So went after that.
Yeah. So you get more serious about all aspects of training and CrossFit, and you get into the mindset of wanting to compete in the regionals. And so how did that go? Did you make it?
Eventually.
Yeah.
The 2017. So the 2016 was kind of where I was like, okay, well, maybe I could be good enough. Like I kind of have the background skill of like gymnastics, and somehow after 20 years, it's still a little bit there. So I just didn't really have the strength, and I didn't really know how to get better. So a couple of the other members of the gym were using Michael Fitzgerald from OPT programming. And I was like, maybe I'll reach out to him. So reach out to him, told him what my goals were. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And through the training and then going into the 2017 Open was so stressful, just like the process along, because you're seeing all these other people that you're competing against to try to be on the team. But you're like, I want you to do well, but I also want myself to do well. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Because were you close with other women that were training?
Yeah, and it wasn't just our gym, because there was 2 CrossFit Armor gyms that kind of housed under the same affiliate. So it wasn't just the girls at my gym; it was the girls from the other gym as well.
Yeah. And so you made it in 2017?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we they took the top, because at that time it was 3 girls, 3 guys. And they took the top 4 out of Armory South and Armory West, essentially, just whoever finished the top. So I think it was the top 6 that they chose, top 6 girls, top 6 guys. And then we kind of had to do like an in-house competition to figure out who was going to be on the team.
Really?
And that was just like grueling. Like our coach had programmed all these separate workouts, and he's like, it's basically like you guys are training against each other to try to get the team put together. So it's like you're trying to also cohorse as a full team to see who would mesh well, but also you're competing against each other. And it was probably the hardest. I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks that we went through. And I remember like one workout, I had just got my strict muscle up like a month or 2 ago, and it was Nate strict muscle ups, right? And I just could not get it. And I just like broke down, like crying. I was like, my dreams are crushed. Ended up making the team, but still. Yeah.
So you guys had 3 to 4 weeks of internal competition to know, holy shit, it's not even like a one-time event.
No, I wish I could remember. I took a couple of videos of it. Like one of the workouts was running straight into strict handstand push-ups into dumbbell snatches, and we just ran that workout in-house to see who was the fastest, and then just figuring out who was going to basically build the team that way.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How was the experience of the competition, the regional in Vancouver?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
No, it was in Portland that year.
Oh, it's always in Portland.
Yeah,
Okay.
in Portland.
The West was the West.
This is the soup. Was that the Super West? Because that was the Canada West and Northwest of the States. Super cool. Like such a rush of adrenaline, and just like if you've ever been at a stadium, like the concert, the like chills you get, the goosebumps. It was like that. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, really cool.
It's that's a cool experience. How do you think this? So after this, were you in the mindset of pursuing competing or
Oh yeah. Things kind of fell apart from there, but after that is like you had a little taste and you wanted more, and I wanted to go back. I wanted to keep being part of the team, and it was such a cool experience to work hand in hand with all these other people. And I think the coolest part of it when we were there, just to like, you have all these different individuals with different fitness levels that created a team and coming together like unison, doing like the worm workouts. And those were our best events. Like we just synchronized so amazing, and it was, I can't even explain how it felt. It was just such a cool experience.
Yeah. The harmony of your group.
Yeah.
How did you, and then, so you, at that point you're leaving Edmonton, or you're still?
I was still there.
You're still there?
Yeah, I was there for 1 more year. Because I met Terrence like in person at the regionals in Portland.
Oh, I see.
And that's where we just started kind of talking and developing our relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was still living in Edmonton that time.
Yeah. So what is it Terrence that made you move to Vernon, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it was 2 things. Like, obviously, I moved to Edmonton for the advancement of my career. And I gave that, was about like 4 years, really, of like working hard and developing a really good working team out there. And I felt, okay, I gave a big effort to that. I'm going to give effort to like my personal life, my love life. So, a year after us dating, I decided to move out here.
So were you able to be moved with your job, or no? You had to let that behind. Yes, that's a big leap of faith.
Yeah, it's still a sensitive spot. Like I think I still have like dreams where I'm still working there, and I remember certain things about the job, and that is one thing that kind of still saddens me that, I had to leave that. It was 10 years of my life. I created such a great bond with the team out there. And even my manager that lived out in BC, it was really sad to leave them.
It's hard to change things like that, because the work, ultimately, it's a very big part of your time, your life.
Yeah.
When you leave things behind like that, can be a lot emotionally.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's that safety net, right? It's the knowing and being comfortable of what you're doing.
So when you came here, did you have any other like professional plan, or was it like just?
When we were kind of talking about moving out here, I started applying for jobs. I ended up coming out here for a visit, and then interviewing at Nixon Winger, so one of the local lawyers, to do kind of an admin job there. And that ended up working out. So I moved here having that job.
Yeah.
I still had TELUS in the back pocket to help them out as I was transitioning out, but it just became a little bit too much. So I had to let go of it completely.
Were you at that point like any interested into making like fitness your career, or wasn't on the table at all?
I think it's always in the back. It was always in the back of my mind, especially once I made it kind of a full bit of my life. I did start, I took my PN nutrition certification like 2016, and I started kind of helping out people that I knew, and just a little bit things under the radar, and building a business on that, and being like, yeah, maybe it could be something. And even when Terrence and I started talking, it's like, oh yeah, the dream is always live in a small town, own a CrossFit gym, and just live life on a beach kind of thing, right? The all-time goal. So it was always a dream / goal. Never really thought it would pan out the way it has.
Interesting. So you were doing nutrition before becoming a coach and things like that. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So you arrived in Vernon. Were you training at Forge at that time?
Yeah, every time I came in for a visit, I was always training at Forge, and then obviously the transition was just, it made sense to just go to Forge and start training.
Yeah.
I still had my coach Michael at the time, so I was kind of doing my own programming.
Yeah. Your own programming in the gym.
Yeah.
I
was that guy.
Because at that point you were still training it with the competitive mindset, or what was the idea?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
In the midst of kind of coming home, after regionals, in that time I started having just like hormone issues, which I didn't pay too much attention to. Like, I knew that sometimes when you train at a high level, sometimes you can lose your cycle. I ended up losing it right before regionals, and I didn't want to think about it. Didn't want to put the effort there. And then as time went on, it was just something that was like, I knew it was an issue. I didn't really want to deal with it because I didn't want to lose the performance that I had gained, and I didn't want to lose the kind of path that I was on. And then that kind of came to a head kind of in and around the time before I started moving here, where I was like, okay, like my performance is starting to derail a little bit. It's starting to go down. My energy, my recovery, everything was starting to just fall apart. So I started to give it a little bit more attention. And that to me just kind of like, I had that all or nothing mindset, where it's like, if I can't be competing and doing everything amazing, then I'm doing nothing.
Yeah. I'm a little bit like that as well.
Yeah. It's hard. It's a hard mindset to switch from. But I ended up just like not training for a little bit, and just trying to like, because I came kind of resentful of the fact that I wasn't going to be on the team and being around everybody that was still training. It was just a little bit too much in my face. So I kind of gave it a little bit of a step back and tried to focus on that. So when I did come back out here, it was more so just, let's focus on strength. Let's not do high intensity. Let's just get our strength up. That kind of just, focusing on strength, it just helps hormone imbalances level out a little bit. So that was kind of the idea of my training too.
I see. What were things that helped you? Because ultimately there's I think for a lot of people, when you're competitive into something and something happens, whether it is an injury and you can't, you kind of like have to let go almost a little piece of yourself.
Oh my gosh.
When you were, because competing or being into competition, like you said, there's no a little bit, it's like it's full on or it's nothing. And so when you kind of like forced to readjust, and there's a little bit of panic that can happen on like, then what is the meaning almost of like
Life.
my my life and things like that.
For sure.
Did you have any, how did you navigate that? Like, did you kind of change the vision that you had about this, or did you do things or think about things that helped you navigate that kind of like facing this moment where, okay, like I can't do this, let's readjust? Or
At that time, I don't think I had the right tools and resources to navigate it well enough. It was that was kind of like my learning piece when I went through that. It was it was like, my life is over. Like, what is this? If I can't compete, what am I doing with myself? Like, what do I have to show if I'm not working hard towards something? Like, even though I had my career, it wasn't this, to me, like building my performance and my strength and being able to compete at regionals. That was something that wasn't handed to me. It wasn't just something that was easy. Like, I actually had to work for it, which to me felt like it was almost the first thing that I did in my life that was for me. And nobody else had any say in it. Nobody else, helped me along. Like, obviously my coaches helped me, gave me the programming, but like, I was in the gym doing the work. And when that happened, when, I went and saw the doctors and they're like, okay, well, you got to stop working out. You got to eat a little bit more. You got to stop, I was like, so basically you're telling me I just can't do myself. Like, I can't do anything that I want to do. And I took that from where it should have been here to like up here. And I was like, I can't do anything. So I definitely the piece of, I felt like a piece of myself was taken away, and I felt super lost. I didn't know, I just didn't know how to navigate through it. I felt super like in a dark place. I couldn't see past where I currently was. So at that time, when I was in it, and I didn't have the tools or resources to navigate correctly through it or in a healthy manner. So when I finally came out of that, I think I understood people who get injuries, who have something change, like how that affects their life. And that to me, like, gave me the understanding to be able to help people that go through that. And then when I go through that again, which I have, injuries, right? That gave me the tools and resources to be able to properly navigate through it in a healthy way.
Right.
Yeah.
So you felt like this gave you the ability to feel closer to the people that would live the same experience because you actually felt.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, especially when you have an industry or you're working in a service department or not service department, but like a service industry where you have to have that connection with people. If you don't have that strong understanding, if someone's just telling you, oh, I'm going through this, you're like, yeah, I get it. I understand. But if you've been through it yourself, you're like, I get it. Like, holy crap, I understand where you're at, and it's hard. Let's get the resources and the tools to get you through this and coming out stronger on the other end.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, and then when did you actually take the step of becoming a coach or starting coaching? Was it around that moment, or was it way later than that?
No, like I had like back in the day, I'd taken my personal training courses, and I had trained like one or two people, helped out coaching when I was at CrossFit Armory. Not too much. It wasn't anything that I would do regularly. But it was always something like I enjoy watching people push themselves, watching them get through, like, whether it's pushing themselves or understanding like, oh my God, I can do this, or just seeing themselves progress and get better at things is a really cool thing. And I think I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't really understand where I wanted to how I wanted to coach and what that looked like. The coaching really came in when we ended up taking over or buying the business.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's good because I was gonna. Well, I mean, you can relate with because being an employee and then the switch from being an employee to um, being a business owner. Now it's been what, like 3 years that you guys bought the gym.
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, 2019.
Okay, I don't want to remove it. Yeah, 2019, just
Yeah.
before COVID. Yeah, oh yeah, because I remember we
Oh,
talked
yeah.
that about that, which is crazy because you can't. I mean, well, I mean, we're gonna talk about that, but like the first thing is, so 4 years in, let's not necessarily focus on what happened through COVID, but just
Mhm.
like more generally speaking, what were things you wish you would have kind of known, or advice you could right now give to your 2019 self
Oh gosh.
getting into this,
Yeah.
that would have helped you uh, navigate this experience?
I think a broad thing would have been, it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The transition from, always being like the corporate life into self-employed, I did not transition well. It was super tough. And I think like I worried so much that I needed to be a certain way. We took over the business. Terrence had already been there for a certain amount of time. He already had those relationships with the members. I didn't. And I felt like I needed to be above and beyond for everybody.
Yeah.
And that drove like super high anxiety and just, again, feeling super lost. Looking back, I wish I had information on really just how to, oh my goodness, I don't even know. Yeah, how to be more resourceful, maybe being self-employed. That's a good question.
You mean the technicality of running the business, like the business aspect of it, or
What was it? It was making sure we didn't, like, the back end business stuff was okay. I could, like, that stuff I understood. But it was managing real people, right? Their lives, and they're there for a certain service that now I co-own with my partner, and he has already been in this industry for so long, and I knew nothing, right?
Yeah.
So coming in knowing nothing and trying to be a person that is running a business for these people that are paying for an amazing service, am I going to live up to that? Am I able to give them what they're wanting? And that was, for me, a really hard transition.
worried by the responsibility you were feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Well, you didn't arrive with knowing nothing. You had like a competition background. You were like in the sphere since like a lot of years, so you didn't have like nothing though. But yeah, and I think also it's the in my experience, but I think for anybody that spent whatever it is, like 10 years as an employee and then suddenly you're a business owner, is the lack of work frame. Like, you realize that you're not anymore into a closed environment where you have to follow a certain step to do things, or somebody that's going to guide you to do something, and you really realize that there's nothing, and you can do pretty much anything you want, and that can be very overwhelming,
for sure,
with an employee background.
Yeah, it's the structure, right? Is like knowing I have all the stuff that I need to do. Okay, but like, how do I do it? How do I, when do I do it? What do I do today? And knowing that there's nobody above you, like you said, to guide you, to give you direction. And it's like, okay, now I have to really pull up my adult pants and do it myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the good thing is that you guys are a team, a couple of two. So like, there's that dynamic that plays a role. So how is that? Because you hear a lot of things. I've done it a little bit also when you mix relationship
Yeah.
with work. There's like everybody's experience is different, but how in your experience this is going, was it like a work in progress to find like this balance on what you guys were both doing or bringing? How was this process on finding and knowing, okay, who's going to do what?
Yeah.
That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that's a good question. When we first took over the business, it was basically like we didn't have the time to really talk and sit down and figure it out. Terrence still took on his role of being a coach, and he was super busy with that. So basically everything else I handled. On top of that, the previous owner, he was coaching, so I had to take on his coaching responsibilities too. So I didn't feel like we had the time to really sit down and navigate, okay, these are your roles and responsibilities. And then COVID hit, so then we were just trying to navigate through there. And honestly, I think it wasn't until 2 years ago where we really sat down like and had a serious owner meeting to be like, okay, where's the business going? Who's doing what? What are we doing? So at first it was just kind of like run and like deal with it, do what we need to do to get through everything. And if there's something serious to talk about, we talked about it. But now I think the challenge is just communicating and not just, and that happens like in just normal relationships, right? Losing that communication to tell your partner, hey, this is what's going on. But now it's like, okay, business hat on. Hey, this is what's going on with the business, blah, 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 blah. And I think the communication is the biggest piece that we continue to try to work on to make sure it is there. Because that's where we both kind of fall apart, is the communication.
Yeah. And how is making the, not the difference, but what is hard also with the business is how do you balance things with your life, but like just like life generally speaking, and the work.
Yeah.
How is this?
That? That's balance is I don't know if it exists sometimes.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I think you have to make balance, right? It doesn't just come. Boundaries have to be, known and strong. We're finally just getting to a point, like now we have a full staff. So Terrence used to work so much where he didn't have very much balance between being able to do some owner roles, coaching, and then everything life after that. So now we're finally getting to a point where Terrence is able to pull back a little bit, help out on the owner side. So he has that balance. And then outside of, making sure that when it's home time, like it's home time. And those boundaries, sometimes, you need to pick up your phone, you need to deal with something. But knowing that when you are working, that's where your focus is. And then when you're home, that's where your focus is. And then knowing that now, that we have a kid, we have to schedule time for ourselves, or else we just don't get it because the focus is on Mac.
Right. So it's being intentional and conscious on setting your... Yeah.
Or else it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, right. No, that's totally true. It's again the structure things like that doesn't exist, so that you have to create them. You have to
create it. You have to create the structure. You have to create the balance. You have to create the boundaries, and you have to have it intentional. Like be intentional about it, and know that okay. When this is working time, like it's working time. I don't just like flip through my phone or do anything like that. Because if you use that time for something else, then work time gets thrown into the other areas of your life and you just don't get to have that balance.
Yeah. Do you think that was the main challenge in this past 4 years, like navigating this balance? What was the main...
Well, obviously the first
COVID
bit,
apart,
yeah. It actually during COVID was actually easier to balance because we were home, right?
Yeah.
We had more time to communicate, but coming back and not having. I think. Sorry, what was your question?
The question was what was the most challenging part?
Yeah, it would be balance.
It would be balance.
100%.
Yeah.
With the boundaries, boundaries and balance.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's basically just finding balance in this new life, totally new life.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that makes sense. Break drink.
Mm-hmm.
So, you talked a little bit about your how to say this, like the fact that you were liking like your competitivity and what you've done because it felt like it was something that you worked for and nobody else,
Mm-hmm.
like and that gave you probably a lot of sense of self-worth,
Mm-hmm.
pride, but not on a negative sense of way,
Yeah.
and control over your life and all these things. How do you think today, because these are things that we can feel
Yeah.
with other aspects,
Yeah.
or is it something that today you were feeling that you can touch and feel with other aspect that would be tied to your productivity or competitivity? Because I think today it's a big thing that I believe we have to learn to deconstruct a little bit, that we live in a system where a lot of our self-worth is said to be tied to our productivity or how good we are at something.
Yeah.
And when you have a sport competitive background, like it's very obvious because your worth as an athlete is your results, right? And like in business, it can be also a little bit the same thing, but I'm curious to know how, for you, and if you reflect on that, how you transition from your, I want to say maybe self-worth, or how you feel about yourself from the where you were at the doing competing in CrossFit, and then kind of losing this and transferring into today who you are and what you do. How do you feel like this evolved, like, and how do you think about that today?
It hasn't evolved. I'm just kidding. It's actually, as you say, that mindset is still there for me. And it's really hard. Like, I like results. You put in the effort, you get results. Being a business owner, those results are not right away, right? You're not like, I work hard for a week and what happened, right? And that, I think that was too one of the challenges when I did become self-employed, was you're working, but there's nothing to show for it. You're just putting in work. You're like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I getting out of this? And then that shifted into, okay, we're building a great community here. We're building something that we're passionate about and we're giving back to people, and this is going to better their lives. And we're building something that, everybody's a part of. It's a little community, a little family. And when I shifted kind of the way I thought about it, everything that I was doing felt a little bit better, like a little bit more like I was proud of what I was doing. I wasn't just doing data. I wasn't just doing social media posts. I was doing something that was building towards something that meant something to us and to the people that are coming.
Right.
So that makes me proud. And then obviously doing my nutrition and building the series that I'm building right now is, it doesn't have that like right away response, but it still makes me feel good that hopefully it can just get one person, right? Help one person. And that's kind of where it's driving these days.
Yeah.
And then my competitive aspect for at home life is just, I have to put in the effort. I have to make sure that, if you want something, no matter what it is, if you want a happy life at home, if you want strong communication, if you want a good bond, you have to put in the effort, right?
Yeah.
So just making sure that is there.
Yeah.
Is that kind of...
Yeah. And I think that's an important point, because you said like you like to see results. So what I don't know if this came out wrong on my side. What I wasn't say is, I don't think there's anything wrong in wanting to see results in what we're doing. What I meant is more to not lose self-esteem if you're doing something and you're not seeing, to not tie your own self-esteem and self-worth as a person, as a human, into the result or not that you're getting, but more into, like you were saying, the effort that you're putting in things, which makes more sense, because the problem is results, like sometimes we won't be really able to, in a lot of things, control really the results of things. And I think, putting the energy into the effort and not really
caring about what comes out of it. Right?
Because when we, and this is, we're going to get as well into nutrition, anything, and you're going to talk about that, but nutrition is something that you probably agreed is need to be seen as a long-term effort, right? Because we kind of need to eat pretty much every day, even though we can survive for, I don't know, like 20 or 30 days without eating. But I mean, that's the extreme. What is your approach on, since we were a little bit into this, on, I'm not going to say necessarily self-worth and esteem, but let's say self-love and nutrition. How do you feel like this is tied up, and is it something that you feel is important as well in your own approach?
For sure. Huge, especially in females, right? And I know guys struggle with this too, but your self-worth, your self-love, this is something that we have to work on, right? I know a lot of women, they wake up, they look at themselves in the mirror, and the first thing that comes to mind is something negative, like, oh, I hate this. Oh, look at you, like, right? And even though they're saying it in that moment, it's still always with you. So that, I think, in turn will choose your action of what foods that you eat. You know, I don't deserve to treat myself with respect, so I'm not going to eat well. I don't feel like I deserve to eat well. Like, you know, for instance, like I'm dealing with one of my clients right now, and she's like, I just don't see anything. I don't love anything about myself. I'm like, okay, like, let's build for that. Like, and she has trouble eating well, and she just doesn't feel like she deserves to feel good, right? And when we eat food that is nutritious and it's, you know, food that makes us feel good, then in turn you want to continue to feel that way. But if you don't deserve that you deserve to feel good, that's just going to be that spiral of eating less nutritious foods that doesn't make you feel good, and then in turn you feel even worse about yourself. So that self-worth is lowered, and you don't have that self-love. So I definitely feel like when you do love yourself and you speak positive about yourself, even just to yourself where nobody else is around, that kind of transition into your nutrition and how you fuel yourself, what foods you eat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. You touched an important subject, I think, as well, that is body image and how people see themselves. And so in the things you do, you're mainly working with women, right? That's
it's about 85% women. Yeah. I do have some male clients as well, for my nutrition one-on-one clients.
Yeah. What do you think, like, first of all, why do you think, wait, how am I going to formulate this question? What kind of, like, challenge you think, you know, women have today toward that, but more importantly, how one can, what can you do, you think, to navigate with more ease, let's say, this world where, you know, physical appearance, it's still like something, and I don't know if it will remain this way or if we'll one day, you know, evolve, or and also the experience with navigating the world as a woman and as a man, or whatever your gender is I think very different. That is for sure.
Yeah.
And so this is why there's the need and the importance to have like people that are sharing experiences on both sides, and both sides that listen to the other side to understand also.
Yeah.
But maybe in your experience, or what do you think are the main challenge today with this, and especially for maybe younger generation, and how today like a young woman can arm herself to really build her self-worth, esteem, or self-love,
Yeah.
without being completely tied to how she looks. I don't know if that question makes sense.
Kind of. It's kind of jumped around. Yeah, like this is such a big piece for me. Body image is huge, right? And no matter, and just speaking about females right now, but no matter what age you are, you're always kind of compared or looking at whatever's out there, right? You always you don't feel good enough. No matter, even if you are in the best shape of your life, you always feel like it should be better. Body image in young females, it's just getting, I feel like it's getting worse and worse, and they're getting younger and younger, and it just breaks my heart. And this kind of falls into why I created my seminar. I don't even know where to start.
So let's start with how you think. What do you want to bring on? What kind of like values or principles do you feel are important to put light on?
I think the biggest thing, social media, everything else that's out there, like TV, like that's portraying something that is non-existent. Every body is different, and every body matters, right? It doesn't matter who you are, what size you are, what race, anything like that. It's like all that matters is like each individual person is unique and amazing, and what your body looks like doesn't say whether you're amazing or you're not. It's what is inside and what you believe, right? And that kind of goes hand in hand with the self-love and treating yourself with respect. If you don't believe it, you're not going to see it, right? So a lot of the times, like as I'm working through a seminar, because it is interactive, we have a little bit of like a role play. So, tell me, or speak to your partner, tell them one thing you love about yourself and why. And it just starts with one thing. That's all you have to do. Start with one thing. And if you tell yourself that every single day, that will start to build, right? That starts to build the confidence, starts to build how you feel about yourself. And I think so much out there, society does portray that you have to look a certain way, and that's what gets inside of our heads, and you don't. What matters is how you feel. 100%. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel good? Okay, if you don't feel good, how can we change that? How do we get you to feeling good? Because if you feel good, you're going to start to feel confident and know that self-love and that body image will start to fade away. Like the negative around body image. And when you feel good, you start to do things that make you feel better. You're kind of growing all of that positive self-love. That I think, and that will be the driving factor, not what you look like, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, that's an interesting approach. So how do you think we do this as a collective? It starts with, well, like you're doing like this
That's okay.
By making them understand that, so how you feel is more important than how you look, right?
Yeah.
How do you think, what kind of tools so do you use to make someone understand that, really? Because like that's one thing to say it, but how do people can applied that in your life? So you use fitness, nutrition, which are like foundation to feeling good, which are like probably one of the best foundation to. Is it like through this mainly that you're sharing this idea, or what other?
It is like that stuff is great, but it does come down to your mindset, right? And how you think about yourself and how you approach that. We're set up to, right away think negative thoughts. If you start to have negative thoughts, how can you switch that to a positive, right? If you look in the mirror and be like, oh, I'm so fat. Okay, switch that, stop. Like in your head, tell yourself to stop, find something you love. I love the way my arms are looking today. Great. Okay, build off of that, right? You can have your nutrition, you can have your lifestyle, you can have your fitness all in turn, but if at the end of the day you don't believe in yourself, and if you don't have that self-worth, and you don't think positively about yourself, you're not going to feel great. Even if you're as fit as you possibly can, if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to feel good, and that in turn is going to start to just deteriorate you.
Where do you feel the pull to get into this because you see the need, or is you think like there's something part of your personal history that like, did you have like any female role model growing up?
Female role model. Yes and no. Like I feel it's a pull for me to. I think more so now being in the industry, nutrition and fitness, and seeing how females talk about themselves, how they see themselves is just like, okay, no, something has to change. And in my own personal story, like when I was in gymnastics, I wasn't super fit or thin. We didn't have the resources of what was nutritious eating. So we ate like fast food, craft dinner, stuff like that. So I was a little, heavier. And my coach told me to stand in front of the mirror and be like, look at how fat you are. Like, do you see that? You're not going to be good enough. You're not going to be a good athlete. You're not going to be a good gymnast. And just like drilling, right? And I understand the side of that to like try to be motivating to like be better. I get that, but we can do it in a better way. And then going into middle school and high school, and God, like terrible, right? No matter what crowd you're in school, there's always going to be some sort of badgering about your body or about something. Like, I remember in middle school, like you hand around your yearbook and everything, and I got mine back, and like somebody wrote, "You're a slut." And I'm just like, I haven't even kissed a boy. Like, how the hell am I a slut? But that's in your head. And then that makes you feel like crap. I started eating, started stealing food out of like my mom's cupboard and like eating in my room and just not feeling good about myself. And then I think that obviously brought on more negativity about myself. And then high school happened, the same thing, similar things. And then even in my, couple of first years of my 20s, like people called me fat. And I was like, where do you have, I don't even know you. Like how it didn't really, I didn't understand at that point that wasn't right. And I was like, these random people who I don't know have a right, or they're saying something about my body. Like, that's okay. That's not good. Obviously, I'm not good enough to be part of this. Right. And that kind of stemmed, or that part and that piece is a big reason why I do want to do this and create. I wanted to create this series because I don't want other young females to feel that way. And it took me until I was in Edmonton in my 30s to really feel empowered and feel strong and feel confident and feel proud of myself. And if it took me 30 years and it started, wherever it started for me, what about where people are at these days? And Tell me to shush up if I
No,
keep.
no. That's really good.
And obviously, you know, being at the gym, I'm talking to the parents, and a couple of the parents talk to me about their kids and what their friends are doing and what their coaches are doing at their figure skating. Like they're pinching their fat and telling them they're fat, telling them to stop eating. And that just like, it literally like brings tears to my eyes because I'm like, are you kidding? These girls are 8 to 10. 8 to 10. And they have their whole life ahead of them. If you're not armoring them with positivity and self-love, like where are they going to be when they're 16?
Yeah.
Are they going to be, you know, like some other people that I know, their kids are cutting themselves. Their kids are wanting to commit suicide. Is that where we want our world to be? And it's just like, I know I'm just one person, but I feel so strong about it. Like it amps me up. I have goosebumps. I just want the parents to understand. So like I did a seminar for the figure skating, and I talked directly to the parents, and I was like, who here has body image issues? All the parents put up their hands. Okay.
The parents?
The parents.
Yeah.
I asked them, do you still have body image issues? Yeah. Okay. Where do you think that came from? Oh, peers, high school. Okay. And I talked a little bit more, just trying to like grow them to start opening up their mind, thinking about it. I'm like, do you want that for your kids? And that kind of like, I had a couple people in tears. Obviously we were talking a little bit further about things, but I'm like, do you want that for your kids? You're 40 years old and you're still struggling. Your kid is 9 years old and they're struggling. How, like, we need to be the change. We need to change this narrative so they are not where we're at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's really good. Yeah, and probably high school is one of like the main point to hit. That's for sure. I happened to me the exact same thing when I was. The exact same thing when I was around like 11, 12. I was something that was like heavier, and I was eating bread, and an older guy like came and kicked the food I had in my hand and tell me, Robin, you should stop eating because you're too fat. You're already too fat. Do you want to be more fat than you are? And I'll remember this my entire life because it pretty much like fucked me up my entire 20s because then you're at that moment, and especially me is really like a sponge and open and curious and really unaware of all violence.
Yeah.
And I'll remember my whole life this kind of like electric signal that you get through your whole spine, like the first time you're being kind of attacked by something, and especially at that age, and the repercussion, the ripples that it has. And especially at that age where we're like complete sponge and we take words of others, and then the problem is that then the people or the adults or that are doing these things it's also come from they're projecting their own fear or their own belief. Like this coach that was telling you this and that, like it's probably not even that he's personally was thinking this, is because he's been transmitted that this is how a 10-year-old gymnast has to look like without even thinking about anything. Oh, this is too not enough or good.
Yeah.
And so it really, the educational part of that I think is extremely important, and I totally approve and agree on this thing, and especially in high school, if we can just handle to educate. But not even into the like nutrition, fitness, all that stuff, but more just like simply give more information on how to be, a better human in this world, how to respect other people, how to understand that everybody's unique.
Words affect people, and like they're your peers. And I know there's this ongoing like hate love between women where it's like, they speak down about them or they call them names like that. You're not just calling them names and it stops there. Like that is taken with them for their life. And to try to bring awareness to that. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like bringing awareness.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time we just do things that we're doing and we don't really understand what it's actually doing to other people. But when you bring awareness to that, like, hey, this matters, maybe not to you because it's just words out of your mouth, but it matters to that person. And how is it affecting that person? Think about that. And if, switch the roles. If that was said to you, like, how would you feel?
Yeah.
Right?
No, totally. So what would be your goal with this? It's to kind of like tour in high schools and
yeah. So my first, like, the empowerment, so the seminar is Love Yourself, part of the female empowerment series. My first one was done with the figure skating. I've reached out to high schools. I've reached out to some of the sports teams. I want to reach out to like the Archway Society, so where women from abused relationships, stuff like that, reaching out to them. And then I did open up one event for just like the general public. But yeah, touring around to try to just speak to as many people as possible. And if, even if like just like one person, if it just affects one person, that means the world, right? Because one person can make a difference.
Yeah, totally. And you can never control like the amount of like people that will be impacted, but you can control, like we say, the effort and the intention of putting this message out there.
Yeah.
And the one that will need it will find it. Like this is
Exactly. That's how it works.
I feel like it works. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about nutrition, maybe. When you work with somebody, what's kind of like your approach? Are you somebody that first analyze what they're doing, or do you work with just like calories with the what is your approach?
Yeah. It does differ from person to person, but obviously we sit down, I kind of see where they're at, ask some hard questions to really understand, how's their way of thinking, where is this coming from, why are they wanting to change, and that just sets me up to be like, okay, this is how I'm going to approach nutrition with them. And then we do a food diary to see kind of what they're eating, and then depending on where they're at, what their experience is, I do try to get most people to track, right? Tracking brings awareness. And a lot, probably about 80% of the people that started tracking that who hadn't tracked before was like, oh my God, I didn't realize how little blah, 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 or how much blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, great. Now we have awareness. So we focus on quality of food, quantity of food, because that's super important. Sleep, stress management, make sure they have movement, and hydration. And those are kind of like the 6 foundations that I really focus on.
I see. Do you work with do people have a say into like what kind of like food do they want, or do you give also like meal thing, or like no, it's more like just
when it comes to quality of food, obviously I'll give them a list of these are the whole foods, and trying to incorporate as much as possible. But I found, like, when I first started out, I used to do meal plans, and I just found that was so structured where it could be taken into, like, it's not a, what's the word I'm looking for? It could be taken as an eating disorder, right? Or turn into one. So I moved away from that.
From the aspect of wanting to control exactly what you
yes.
eat?
Yeah, because that's where the diet culture comes in, is if I'm saying, okay, eat this, this, and this, where's the room for like real life? Where's the room for, hey, I want a Kit Kat, or I don't want that, I want to have this. And it just takes the pleasure out of enjoying what you eat. It takes that completely out. It's just like so regimented, and it's not a positive way to approach nutrition.
Interesting. So it's mostly they have like the work for the amount of calorie that they should eat every day, and a list of food that they can tap in.
Yes and no. Most women or most people that come to me, they're under eating protein. So that will be like the number one. Let's get our protein up.
Yeah.
Don't really take into consideration calories. Once we hit the protein goal, depending again their experience, where they're at, maybe we'll work on like a calorie goal, so I can kind of see how they get those calories, whether it's more protein or more fat versus carbohydrates. And then for people that are a little bit more experienced, we do tap into controlled macros.
I see. And do people work with you like monthly? What kind of like program do you have? Like monthly, 3 months, 6 months? What is
I generally say like a first 6-month commitment, right? Because so much can happen in the first 3 months. That is just getting a little bit of confidence in there, finding a good, like what works best for them. And then the next 3 months is basically like, that's where some change happens. And then the check-ins, I have a couple tiers where we check in like on Zoom or in person, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly or once a month.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. How do you like that working with people?
I love it.
On nutrition, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I love tapping into not only just like talking about nutrition, but the psychology, like it's the psychological part of it, where how they think about food, how they react to certain things, and just talking them through that. And that kind of goes hand in hand with that mindset piece, right? Everybody, for the most part, everybody that I've worked with has a certain mindset around food, that all or nothing mindset. Can't have this is good, this is bad, and really trying to transition it into a more healthy way of looking at and approaching food.
Like what would be considered what would you consider like a wrong way to approach food?
Putting like good and bad labels on food and saying you can't have this, don't have this, this is bad, don't ever have, restricting, right? Restricting is just going to open up a world of possibly binging on whatever you're restricting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Sorry, I had some. Oh yeah. So what are classic, not necessarily myth, but like classic mistake that you've seen? Not necessarily mistake, or like classic thing that people shouldn't be doing that maybe you've seen throughout like your clients or things like that when they started to work. What are like classic beliefs or things that we should avoid doing regarding nutrition?
I don't know. Most of the time, people need to eat more than they think. Some myths are like, some of the ones that we've heard is like, carbs make you fat. Fat makes you fat. If you eat protein, you're going to get bulky. No. Yeah, there's so much misconception and misleading information online that it's really hard to navigate a healthy way of eating with all that information that's like pulling you like so many different directions, right? When you go to, like, if you Google online how to lose weight, basically just stop eating, right? Eat 1,100 calories. Like, a lot of the time we're already under eating, so we have to eat more. And when you eat more, your body's going to end up losing weight sometimes, right? There's a lot of misleading information.
Yeah. Do you think it's important to get what would be like the profile of somebody who needs assistance with nutrition?
That's a good question. There's a couple. I think the biggest one is people who find themselves always in some sort of diet or doing a fad diet. And it's like, oh, I need to lose 5 pounds or 10 pounds, so I'm going to stop blah, 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 blah. Or I'm going to do this diet. I'm going to go keto. Okay, well, why? Like, let's explore that. Why do you want to do that? The other thing is, like, if someone has a specific goal in mind and they just feel unsure and not confident in what to do, usually that would be a good reason to coach.
Interesting. So what would you say to sorry, it's like the questions are popping in.
Love it.
So what would you say to we'll stay with on the women's side, to a woman that doesn't feel good about herself for whatever reason, and what would be like the first step, the first things to get into, let's say like that doesn't necessarily is into fitness or serious about nutrition, like what would be like the first step for somebody that is not necessarily lost, but that is navigating this world and not feeling good, like we were saying, that the feeling about how she looks or other aspects. What would be the first thing that you would do in that kind of situation?
I would ask a bunch of questions. What makes you feel good? Why don't you feel good? Why do you think you don't feel good? Tell me some things that you have done in the past that do make you feel good. And then start building on that. If they're like, I really like, I used to go on bike rides all the time. I used to feel so good. Well, why don't we do those? Well, I don't know. What if you did that once a week? Okay. And then just like building on, depending on what their responses were. A lot of the time, like when someone doesn't feel good, it's, well, probably I'm not eating well enough. Okay, well, how do you think we can change that? And just getting them to kind of come to the terms of why they don't feel good and helping them through that.
Interesting, yeah. I love let's do more of what made you feel good in the past, because I believe, it's a big thing that, especially in adult life, like there's not enough, we don't emphasize enough the importance to keep having like passion for something, excitement, play, that kind of thing, that kinds of like
too many responsibilities
can be fading away. But I mean, if you don't do this, it's if you don't take the time to do this,
you lose yourself.
Totally.
Yeah. I see that so much, and it's tough, right? And I becoming parents is a big thing. Like that changes people. They lose themselves, right? Because they're doing so much for their kids. They really stop looking at themselves. And, how am I? Like one of the biggest things is those children, just like you said, a sponge, right? They look up to their parents. If the parents aren't taking care of themselves, that's going to follow suit with their kids. So, and if they're not happy, your kid's going to see that. Like you may think you may put on a brave face or a happy face, but your kid feels that, right? You know how you walk into a room and you can feel tension? Well, I'm pretty sure your kid can feel that you're not, and they can sense that you're not happy. And the biggest thing is like, we do advocate to parents is like, put yourself first, like do something for yourself, whether that's coming to the gym, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's singing, dancing, whatever the case may be, you need to do something for yourself. Because I do see so many parents who have come into the gym, or some of my friends who just have lost themselves, and they're just not necessarily dull, but they are a little bit unhappy. And like I do that is big for me, is like just making sure like you got to put yourself first. Like I know that sounds bad, but if you're not taking care of yourself, one, nobody else is going to take care of you. Two, if you're not taking care of yourself and something goes wrong, who's going to look after your child, right? And when people are talking about having kids, like I know I have my opinion, but it's like you have to really want a kid, and you have to make sure that you are strong in who you are when you have that kid. Because if you're not strong in who you are and what makes you happy, you're going to lose yourself, and you're going to be so resentful and so unhappy, right? And that, because like even for Terrence and I, who we are so strong in who we are and have all these boundaries and have a healthy lifestyle, like it still affects us, and it's still hard. Like being a parent is hard. So yeah.
Is it would you say is one of the hardest thing you've
Yeah, for sure.
Is there like, do you feel a pressure on being a model? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And even more so like in that social media, and Terrence will smack me for at times, like because we have that social media right at our hand, right? Instagram will always be like, basically in your face, you're not being a good enough mom. You're not doing good enough. You're not this. And you really have to, and that's where the boundaries come in, is like, know that, okay, why are you looking at your phone? And why is this random person affecting you? And those are conversations that Terrence and I have, because we all need to be reminded, right? So he's like, okay, what is this serving you? And why is this random person telling you that you're not a good mom? Because, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, we live in a world where we're attacked from all sides of external influence. And
For sure.
like you said, like the importance of knowing who you are, I feel it's the first step of your life, even though like some never get to this, or some early or some not early, but like knowing who you are is your first demon, I'm gonna say. Like it's your first mountain to climb and explore.
Yeah. Yeah. Finding, I think that's a big thing, is like, what makes you happy?
Yeah.
Like a lot of adults don't know, right? It's like, okay, well, what brings you joy? What makes you happy? I don't know. Like, okay, let's find that out.
Yeah. Because I mean, also maybe, I mean, and I think older generations, it's something that was maybe lacking from what we'll have today. Like if today we can, I feel like though we're going in the direction where younger generations, since they have more information, they see more things, they have more options. I feel like they're able to ask themselves questions that past generation couldn't even. So even though there are things that are detrimental, because in any way, like if we take just social media, there are great things. There are things that are super toxic. But it's like kind of anything to me. Like there's always like good and bad things. But if anything, I find is that I feel like younger people are more in touch with, like what is the meaning of this? Like,
Asking
am I here
questions.
to just like suffer and do things for X amount of hours of my life to just then be able to pay to exist, right? Like we're able to raise more question and to be more in tune with, what does it mean, and what do I want to do with my life? What makes me happy, like you said. So I think this is one of the positive aspect of being influenced, is that when you're influenced by good thing, right? By people that raises the good question. But so you were talking about being a parent. I'm curious to talk about your fitness journey through your pregnancy, if it's something you can were you, so first of all, I mean, the whole just the thing of like being pregnant is something for man that's like complicated to comprehend. But when I think about it, I have this kind of like insane anxiety creeping on me. I'm like, holy shit, like just the aspect of having
is so messed up.
a human in your belly. Like we don't think about this as men, because we're like, it's not happening crazy for us. And when I think about it, it's like, it's insane. It's actually insane.
Yeah, it's super hard to comprehend. It's like, how is there's a child in me, breathing, growing, eating, moving, living. Like there were some nights, like if you like think about it, just like some things where your mind just starts to wander into like the deep dark you probably shouldn't think about. But it's like, oh my God, I'm in charge of this little thing that's inside of me. Like, holy crap. Yeah, it's crazy. That's the one thing, like, kind of like eerie is like the best thing I could say. Is like, it's eerie that happens.
What is the first do you have like instantly a change in the mindset of like around, if we keep because I think that's where also like people are more curious about the nutrition and training and fitness and movement aspect of it throughout, like, do you have directly a change in the mindset that you have that consciousness of not consciousness, like being conscious about are you scared like to move initially and that kind of thing, or like
I
how does that?
was. I was only because I was considered geriatric. So being older, like there's higher risk and everything. So I was, I think, over concerned to do something wrong. Like I didn't want to potentially hurt my baby. So I did take the seat of being a little bit more conscious and a little bit more cautious around that too. And just knowing, like, making sure, okay, you're supposed to sleep on your left side during second trimester and so forth. And like just making sure I was trying to do everything that was suggested. And then when it came to my fitness, I definitely was training at a higher intensity prior to getting pregnant. We did lower it a little bit because we were like actively trying to get pregnant. And then when I did get pregnant, I like right away like told my coach, I was like, hey, pregnant, like let's take it back. So it did like stopped doing like really high intensity stuff. Just took it to like more of a moderate, and like across the board, not super high lifting. I did still do like Olympic lifting and squatting, but to be really like conscious of how I was bracing my body. Like you're not supposed to bear down, you're supposed to pull up and expand and breathe differently. So then as I advanced, I just was probably a little bit too, what's the word to use? A little bit too cautious, I think, where I probably could have done more in my fitness to be in a better place post-pregnancy. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. But but is it worth it though? That's the thing. Is it
To
worth
some
it
people
to take
it is.
more risk?
Yeah.
But wait, did you have any like people that gave you? Did you get any like specific exercise or things that things to do? Like, did anybody like give you some kind of knowledge around that, or what you could do, what you couldn't do, what you should do? Not at all?
Well, yes and no. When I first found out we were going to try to have a baby, and when we got pregnant, I took a course online for pre and postnatal pregnancy nutrition and fitness, so I could arm myself with the knowledge. So I was doing what I could. So we do have like modifications and stuff at the gym that I created from this program to be able to make sure that you're taking everything into consideration. And then there is a lot of like post-pregnancy rehab stuff to do to make sure that you're, preparing your body to get back to exercise, no matter what type of exercise, especially like core related, right? Because there's a lot of potential risk there. So yes and no, like obviously learn from that program. There's a lot of information out there, stuff that I definitely like to get more into, because obviously women are always getting pregnant and everything like that. So yeah.
Was the post, how was that experience getting back into training? Because I know, I mean, it's you hear about that subject a lot. I mean, personally, I've seen a lot of people talking about that, like mentally, emotionally. I know that it can be like a wild ride.
Yeah.
So how was that experience for you?
Yeah. For me, it was not amazing. I definitely hid at home and did like in our home gym, because I wasn't ready to face the world of just accepting where I was. So I did a lot of like low intensity, try to do some strength movement, but I never really pushed myself to like where I was before. And like right off the get-go, I felt so disconnected. Like, I'm like, this doesn't feel like how I remember it feeling. Every exercise, jumping, squatting, pushing, pressing, lifting, everything just felt so different. And that was a struggle for me to really wrap my brain around, because like when you remember something being a certain way and then you're doing it again and you're like, okay, this doesn't feel the same. And really it wasn't until 2 years after after giving birth that I actually felt like, okay, things are connecting. My brain is connected to my body, and my body knows what it's doing. And maybe that was from like breastfeeding so long. I know there's a lot of like relaxin that's still in my system, but whether it was that or whatever it was, like literally like 2 years postpartum wasn't until I started feeling like the way I want to feel.
I see. Did you have any things that you think like helped you regain remake that connection, or was it really just like time and
time, consistency,
yeah.
and just, I think just having that positive, a part of me could have been like, F this, like it's never going to happen. It is what it is, and just kind of give up a little bit. But knowing that like, hey, like I'm putting in the work, eventually everything's going to start to click. Like just the way everything is. Like if you just keep showing up. And like the hardest thing is like, if you get there and if I show up, even if my effort feels like a 50%, I'm still putting in the effort that I feel is there. So that's kind of like taking it day in, day out, and just, for me, just not trying to think about where I was or where I want to be, and just being present in what I was doing and trying to be as intentful as possible. Yeah.
Nice. Did you have any, is the nutrition through pregnancy needs to be different? Is there like things that you have to do or things that you really don't?
It's a great question.
Weird cravings. And so I know there's like random, suddenly you can.
Everybody has different cravings. I think, and everyone's totally different, but in the research that I did, there's specific like micronutrients that you're supposed to be getting. So like I made sure like eggs, I had to get like certain, I can't even remember now off the top of my head, but there are specific types of nutrients, vitamins, minerals that you should be getting throughout your trimester to, best kind of give the building blocks to your baby, and to suit them up as healthy as possible. So I was eating food that I usually don't, like bread and dairy, where because they talk about like intolerances and everything like that. So I wanted to make sure I was aiming him for as much like best success as possible, to not have like any allergies or intolerances as best as I could. So arming his like microbiome in his gut. So I was eating basically a variety of everything as much as I could. My random, like in the first trimester, I could not eat chicken or oats and those, I lived off chicken and oats. That was my life. And I was like, I just can't. Oh, I can't. It was terrible. But I could eat like chicken fingers that we bought, like frozen chicken fingers. I could eat that. Like random, that was my craving, like chicken fingers or like breakfast sandwiches from Ratio. Just like so good.
Yeah. That's overall, you'd say, well, I guess you kind of like answer that. Like your the main challenge for you throughout this was this moment where you felt disconnected with your body and regaining that connection.
Yeah. It's, gosh. I was talking to Terrence about this the other day. It's just like females are so like, I don't want to say men are simple, but men are very.
We are more simple than
you are. And just how women's brains work, right? It's not just one thought. It's like this thought, all these other thoughts and subcategories to that, right? And as you're going through this, a lot of it is an emotional kind of, it's an emotional battle, especially for people that were competitive or have a certain adherence to self-worth and stuff like that. And when you're not meeting that, it's really hard to change that mindset and to not take it in an emotional way that could be detrimental to you, like mental health and everything like that. I found that like the biggest struggle was mentally, just like being okay with where you are at. Right. Yeah.
What helped you Did you any tools that like help you through that? Any things? Any
Um,
thoughts? Any
I think being super realistic with one, where I was at, where I wanted to go, and breaking that down of how I was going to get there, right? So knowing that I wanted to get back to training. Okay, so what do I need to do to get back there? Okay, well, I need to make sure my nutrition is good. I need to make sure I'm having good sleep. I need to do all these other things to get there. So focusing on those small things, the foundational habits, to know that when those are all kind of hitting their highest peak, then I know that that's where I'm going to be. So for me, it's just simplifying it, right? Instead of, because for me, I always have like big goals, big aspirations. And when I focus on that, it's like, oh my God, like I'm never going to get there. So to be able to break that down and be like, okay, this is what I need to do day in, day out. If I'm meeting that, I know that that's going to happen just with time.
yeah. That's a good thing. The vision, working on the vision and the step together. Yeah, interesting. Where do you think? So what right now? What are like your main goal for the future? Is it like to develop your Empower life seminar, the gym,
A little
nutrition?
bit.
Like it's just like amplifying all these things.
Yeah, just I want everything to be excelling as much as it could, right? So we're getting to a good place with the gym, having a full staff. We still want to keep building, right? We want to make sure that what we're providing to our members is the best experience, and then bringing in people that, kind of fall within that. The female empowerment series, just streamlining. I think the biggest thing, like I want the seminar to be a big thing. That is super important to me. And then obviously continuing my one-on-one nutrition clients. That one, I'm pretty happy. Like I don't feel like I need to do too much to build that much more. Like it's at a good spot, as long as I kind of maintain that. And then being able to build out eventually like a fitness / nutrition program under that female empowerment series that I can offer to people. Right. Long term, I'd like to build some sort of like sponsorship or charity where people who may not be able to afford it or may not be able to, whatever the case might be, to be able to provide that service to them and them not have to pay for it.
Oh, nice. That's good. All across the board vision. Yeah, I like it. Do you think so you have like a strong community aspect, I would say, because everything all of this goal is really as working with people. Yeah,
I think it definitely, it can grow, especially being like getting out in the community more. I think myself and voicing the seminar and stuff like that is new, and I haven't been able to express too much, like obviously except for reaching out to the schools and the sports teams, but getting out and talking to more people, other business owners, whoever, basically just network a little bit better. I think that has been a missing piece. Just been like obviously time and everything, and the need to be able to go out there is, I think, pretty high.
Yeah. You could do it online also, I guess.
Yeah.
You could do like live interactive talk on like platforms and things like that.
I do on my I have a closed Facebook group, and I do like live talks there, but that's only for whoever's in the group too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Even though in person is way better, and now especially after COVID and stuff, like we have like there's a big need to gather people together and to reconnect.
I think, and I've thought about that, like to be able to bring the seminar, online, but I feel like there's something to be said about getting a group of people in a room together, being vulnerable with each other, and like kind of as we work through the seminar, it is, like I said, it is interactive. So I do ask questions. When other people are putting up their hands, other people will be like, oh, like they're struggling with that too. And it just, when women open up and become vulnerable, like it is such a empowering atmosphere, and it's so amazing to see that. I don't feel like I don't think that would be there online. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Oh yeah, because you feel more when you are, well, you're into like people's energy when you're around, like it's a very different dynamic. Yeah, so I mean this the theme of vulnerability is something that comes up often in these episodes, because it's such a big it's such a big thing. I think it even like means different things on the women and the men's side, but what I found, and what I think it's also important too, but it's only my opinion to share it with like this, especially the younger crowd like you want, is because I think it comes a lot from, we built this narrative and this belief that we arrive in this world to literally compete. And I don't know if it's different for men and women. On the men's side, like it's a lot like that, because it's a lot, if you're not producing, or as a man, if you're not doing anything valuable, you're worth nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that part of how we heal this is to kind of break this feeling that you have, that the guy next to me is my competitor, but is just like another person, that whatever that person is going to do, say, achieve, doesn't take away anything of who I am, what is my worth, what I can do, what I can say. And it's really breaking, like lowering the fear and the protection with other people, and to really understand that we are all in it together. And if we can just like, lower our shields and thing, and just understand that like we are our own enemy. Like we're the only one that are going to like hurt ourselves. Like if you're open and vulnerable, it's actually this way that nobody will be able to actually touch you, because you're already transparent.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be as emotional when you keep your secret, you keep your things, and somebody pokes you about it. This is where it hurts. But when you're like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I've done.
Yeah.
And then now you're like almost
invincible.
Yeah.
You can't touch me.
And that's something that I think as well, like we need to make sure younger generation understand, is that the person next to you is not your enemy. It's a collaborator of. But
I think that's so amazing that you shared that, because as you're saying that, I was like, oh my God, like the female are like, we're the exact same, but it's different. We're trying to adhere to whatever society says that we need to be. And a lot of it comes around that body image, right? We need to be good enough so a man will pick us, or we need to be prettier, fitter, whatever the case may be. So we're showing that we're better than the people around us. I need to be better. That person's this, I need to be better. And whether it is because we need to find a mate, or we need to, just show people that we are good enough, whatever, I don't know where it stems from. Like, and I feel like maybe it's something that's just been ingrained in us through society, through, previous, like our parents, or whatever the case is. Like for the men, like exactly how you said it, like this person, I don't need to compete against them. And just like females, like I don't need to compete against her. Like she's on her own journey. My journey has nothing to do with that person's journey, and her journey has nothing to do with mine. And if you own, like that's the one thing that I do say, like talking to my clients in the empowerment series, is like own it. Like just own your shit. It doesn't matter if it's whatever you're like. I was having a conversation with one girl. She's like, I'm just super emotional. I'm like, own it. Like cry. Who cares? Like. I'll have moments where I'm just crying in the middle of the gym because I'm frustrated about something. I cry, I get it off. Okay. Then I pick up the weights and I just keep going. Like if we can own our shit and not try to give an excuse to why we're doing that, or why we're not this way, or why it's not this way. Like, I don't know why. Like, I don't know where that comes from.
Well, I think the thing is, once we truly embrace who we are and how unique we are, this is how we are able to separate ourselves from quote unquote like the competition.
For sure.
Because part of this system we're in is that we're kind of like trying to squeeze everybody into
a box.
Yeah, one kind of like, oh, you have to be this way, behave that way. This is like, don't make too much noise, don't make too much ripple. It's like, and so as everybody's shutting down their very unique aspect, and we're all in this thing where we feel like we're all the same. This is where sparks like this competition, because I'm afraid of others and who's going to be better than me. But as we move away from this and really embrace and express how unique we are, because everybody's unique with their own path and things like that, the more I think we actually lower the fear of competition, because the more we stand out in our own way. But like you said, for women, I think it's a harsher navigation. And I think like this is really personal opinion, and a lot of people will say different things, but I feel like today it's kind of a harsher navigation for women than it is for men, even though there's a lot of men who would disagree with this. I feel like as a man, whatever happens, like even if you're at the bottom of the bottom, I feel like you could always find a way to make something. And I feel like on the women's side, we're still in a society where you are still more dependent of other things that will really approve or not. I feel like it's harder to break through for women than men from the mold. But it's personal opinion.
Yeah, and to that, like as you're saying that, it made me think about something that we were kind of talking about a little bit before. But, and I don't know where this comes from, but I feel like women I feel like that the pressure to look and be a certain way comes from, if you're not looking a certain way, like being in that box, somebody will tell you. And I know like as I went through, like when I was younger, somebody commented on my body, and then high school and this and that. And then when I was pregnant, random people that I didn't know commented on my body. And where in the world do especially men have the right to say something about a woman's body? Like when do we be like, say something to a boy like, oh, like are you having twins? No. Like that. And I don't feel like men necessarily have that. I know they do, but not to the full extent. And for females, I feel like it's just it's their body that gets commented on more than it really should. Like no one should ever comment on a female's body. It's not for them to comment because like it doesn't matter what somebody else thinks about your body. It really doesn't. And the biggest thing is like that goes back to the self-love. Like only you matter what you think about yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody else says or thinks. But when somebody has the approach of, a higher peer, a role model, their coach, their parents, and they're saying something about this person's body and they're taking that to heart, like that is like when you say men can't, like they can kind of like break out of this, like how do females break out of the, I guess, being on display for people to comment about? Do you know what I'm saying?
Wait, can you repeat that last sentence?
So how do women get out of being on display for people to comment about their body?
Yeah.
That's kind of like, I think where a pressure comes in to look a certain way.
Right. Well, there's one thing that I really like about building yourself as not being too much influenceable by external comment and judgment is to then don't take it as the first degree of like, oh, somebody is like telling something about me, but then thinking also, why does anybody judge? Why does anybody interact? Why does anybody would feel like commenting on something? Where does that come from? And what does this truly mean? Because judgment, and there's a quote that I don't remember the full one, but it's actually, I think Nikola Tesla who said something like, when you understand that judgment is nothing more than the how do you say that, the aftermath of somebody's personal history.
Yep.
Like when somebody is going to comment on something, we associate to the world like judgment, and we see that, oh, somebody's above me, like a judge can
Yes.
judge me. But it's actually the opposite. It is somebody
Down here
that is talking
trying to
about
pull them.
their personal.
Yeah.
It's your personal story. When you comment anything about me, it's your personal story.
Yeah.
It's what you've seen that built the fact that today you entered in contradiction, or something made you want to say something.
Yeah.
But it's not about the one that is being judged. It's about the one that is
100%.
judging. And when you really dive deep into this and understand this, you almost, because it's something I've struggled my whole life with, and then you almost get into building empathy for the person, and
Yes.
understand where that comes from, because maybe this person had their parents
Yes.
really maybe the one that said I was fat was projecting his fear of being fat, because
Yeah.
maybe his parent was telling him don't be fat, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you kind of like understand that whole process, and just being able to relax and sit with this and understand that it's just like there's an external world and there's your internal
Yes.
world, and
Yes. Oh my God.
it's their personal story
Yeah.
that come in ripples with you. But knowing that, like, thanks for sharing your it's that the word is like judgment it's a confession.
Yes.
Like once you turn judgment into a confession, somebody's not judging you, is they're making a confession of how they
Yeah.
feel right now
Yeah.
in their
It's like, can I hug you right now? Like, right?
no, but yeah.
Yeah, that's 100%. Like, and that I have like a very similar spiel in the high school kind of seminar is when someone's judging you, it's not about you, it's about them. And it's almost like when you start to understand, if you've ever spoke ill about somebody, how are you feeling when you spoke like that? Were you not feeling good? Where is that coming from? And being able to open up, the complexity starts with kind of what we were talking about before, is building that armor of knowing yourself and knowing that your worth and being positive and having that self-love, and then being able to switch that off and be like, okay, so why are you saying this to me? And asking those questions and trying to dig deeper, because a lot of the time you're absolutely right. It's not that just face value comment. It's deeper than that. Where is that coming from? Why are you feeling that way? And it's when you actually start to think about it, like you said, you have that almost empathy for that person. You feel bad. You're like, something obviously affected you in your life for you to feel the way you do right now. And that's why you're saying that to me. Yeah. And it hurts. Like, why is the world hurting so much where we need to hurt other people? Like, it just it sucks so much.
Yeah. And then there's two kind of like, there's the hurt people, or hurt people make sure that they don't keep hurting people, right? Like it's the hero and the villain story are the same. They got hurt, and then one's is gonna project that onto the world, and one is gonna make sure it doesn't happen again. But I mean, it's a balance. It's kind of that's life. That's part of the game.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very valuable and very needed to do the kind of thing you're gonna do, like speaking even for high school people, even like younger than high school, to just raise the awareness, like I said, about that. It's
it's like I said, like it is so disheartening, and it breaks my heart to hear young girls at the age of 8 having to deal with that and having to restrict themselves. They can't eat this, they can't eat that. Like, let's change this. How can we move this around? Like, eat food that makes you feel good. How can we make them feel good? Because all this stuff that's happening to them is not making them feel good. And it's just going to progress. It's just going to get worse as they get older, which again sucks. What was I going to say? Oh, poop. What were you saying?
No, you were just saying, the importance of to attack these subjects early on, and that it was breaking your heart that you were still like 8 years old, already being like self-conscious about, because 8 years old, you should nowhere be close to be like to have like body image
No.
issues at
No.
8 years old. Like you should just like,
You should be just loving the world.
Yeah.
And like at that age, you still are so naive. You don't know all the bad that is to come in the world, right? We as adults know all of that, right? And they're 8. They don't know everything that we know. Why not be able to project all the positivity that there is in the world? And maybe if we do show them all the positivity and all that the good that they have and that they can bring, that they're going to just change the world. Because sometimes where the world is going is not amazing. And it is scary to see what is happening in the world. But if we can have our kids be armed and be positive and want to make a change and want things to be better, who's to say where that's going to go?
Yeah. And that's all we can do, right? Like in the world, like you can only, fight for the thing you're thinking are right and positive, and just like exist through this. Like, that's all we can do. What else can we do?
No idea. Whatever's in our control.
Yeah. No, but yeah, that's
Yeah, I love. Yeah, it gets me amped up, like talking about that stuff and talking about. Like I was talking about this before pregnancy, and I was telling Terrence I was gonna build it during pregnancy, but we got too busy. And I don't know what it was. I think it started when I was still living in Edmonton. I was talking to one of the girls I was working with, and just like how she felt about herself. And you could tell in the way that she was doing her work. Like she didn't feel good about herself, and her work just was showing that she just didn't have that confidence in herself. And we just started to like kind of talk about it and like dive into it and kind of break it down. And I was like, well, like, you're an amazing person. Like, why don't you see that? And she's like, I don't know. Like everybody in my life has just told me that I'm not.
Yeah.
And like, then that opens up, like when you have that mind, like that opens up, she was in an abusive relationship. So she lets herself be treated that way because she doesn't believe she deserves anything else. Right. And like to think about how many other people could potentially be in this situation. Like it's just like, it's so tough. And I know I can't change the world. And I know I can't do that. And like Terrence has to be like, you can't change, like you can't help everybody. I was like, I don't like, yes, obviously I want to help everybody, but if one person hears it and it empowers them to get out of a bad situation or gets them into a better situation, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's one more person that is doing a better place in the world, right?
Yeah.
Better thing.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And then what's interesting is that you can never really judge how potentially the impact's going to be, because maybe you're going to talk to a 12 years old and actually it's going to spark something, and that person is going to impact maybe thousands of persons. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you can never, by touching one person, sometimes you can touch way more, and how this person then is going to carry, because we transmit things, and then and then you it's like a fire on you spark all the things, and then it spreads. So even if it's like one person, it's always can always have like a bigger impact at the end. You can never really know. So one person starts with one person, and then
and that's like the negativity of gossip, right? One person starts saying something and then it spreads,
it spreads
right?
the same way. Yeah.
So if we can spread that positivity, like how amazing would that be?
Yeah.
Yeah. My hopes and dreams.
I mean, that's good. The world needs everybody's light, and especially today we're in some thank you very much for sharing all that.
I appreciate it.
It was really good.
I like what you're doing here. I hope it continues.
Thank you.
So like when I don't remember when I like started messaging you, I was like, this is awesome. Like what you were doing, like that amps me up, right?
Yeah.
And like that makes me, I was like, okay, Robin's getting his word out there. He's doing what he's doing. Like, I'm like, I can do it too. And that's kind of that's cool, what we're talking about, like the feed, right? And I love what you're doing. And just like, it makes me feel that passion. It makes me feel that excitement. And that in turn like transfers into everything else I'm doing, right? That gives intent to other things. So I hope that you know that. That's
cool. Yeah, no, I like that, because that's exactly my goal, is to having just like help facilitate the authentic expression of somebody that is on a mission for something.
Yeah.
Like
I
that's
can't
one-
understand half your French, but
Oh yeah. So just one thing before, maybe it's something that I want to start doing, which is a guest is going to leave a question for the next guest without knowing who it is.
what was the question?
No, so you're the first. So nobody has a question.
I'm just kidding.
So you would be the first starting that, because I just saw that on another podcast, and I want to start because I find it's interesting. So you can think about it. You don't have
I
to
already
say
know.
it right now. Okay, so if you already have, like, tell me.
What?
Okay, well, I'll ask that at the end for the next one. All right, that's a wrap. Thanks.
Is very flowing.
I was doing a lot of course I want to sign up for this.
Yeah.
I always got to respond to something different.